Hello everybody, welcome to Builder Buy. My name's Gil Boyd and this is kind of crazy tonight, doing this at a late night hour. Co-host of Builder Buy. Normally we have an audience crew. We do this on Wednesdays from 1 to 3, but today it happens to be just me. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight. Hope you enjoy this. And again, remember we meet every Wednesday from 1 to 3. Maybe we'll get a different crowd tonight. Builder Buy, we talk about building, buying, and upgrading computers. And the special we're going to do tonight, even though we're past the Friday sales, that reminds me, while we're talking about the Friday sales, if you're interested in building, buying, or upgrading a computer, that's what we talk about in computer technology. Our goal is to help people learn how to use computer technology to help you to help yourself, and to tell you some of the things we come across that we think are interesting. And what I want to share with you today is if you missed the Black Friday sales, don't worry, there's going to be some more. They're going to flood everybody's inbox. You either have to pick the vendor you want to deal with as far as buying whatever you're looking for. And right now is a good time to be buying or building a computer, or if you're looking at buying a TV, or if you're thinking about a desktop or a laptop. For example, some of the best deals, I'm going to go to another computer here right quick, and I'm going to take you through some deals that we have come across that I think, you know, hindsight is always 20/20. What I'm going to do is go to Builder Buy and show you some of the talking points we've got. I've got about 40 talking points on here, but the first thing I want to tell you about is probably the best deal. It's over with right now, but that doesn't mean it won't come back. And that would have been the AMD Ryzen. If you're thinking about building a Threadripper machine, the AMD Ryzen Threadripper, that computer CPU is bang for the buck. And the best deal going was today at MicroCenter. Now, just because that deal is gone doesn't mean it won't come back. And if you'll notice the price point at $700, watch the other vendors, the people online. Somebody will be doing something eventually. It's just a matter of time. Going back to this deal, though, the link I had up on Builder Buy doesn't work because it was a special with that CPU and the motherboard that we're going to build our Ryzen Threadripper with later down the road. We're still working through components, waiting for a BIOS update. But that's the CPU to get. And the motherboard we were looking at was an MSI. But that link doesn't work on Builder Buy anymore. So I'm going to change that link in a couple of days to reflect this CPU where you can watch it. Now, if you'll notice, back over here to the website, the AMD Ryzen Threadripper, this was at the Houston, Texas store, sold out, which is a bummer, but there'll be some more. So for anybody that's watching tonight, I hope you enjoy this. And those that you watch this recorded, what I'm going to go with this is talk to you a little bit about, as we've talked about the desktop, I want to move this into a laptop because the next broadcast I'm going to do, and I haven't decided to do it live or recorded, is I'm going to talk to you about a specific laptop that I want to lead you into right now. So if somebody's interested in buying a laptop, the laptops I judge all laptops by, I'm going to go back over here to Builder Buy and look at our talking points, and I'm going to go down here to talking point number 48, the ASUS laptops. Now if I bring up that site, hold down the control key and click enter, the ASUS laptops that I've judged the other laptops by is the ZenBook. Now, I can't take you in and show you that particular model. I can show you where a link used to exist over on the Costco site, because when you're looking at some of this stuff, the places I like to deal with are number one Costco, probably number two maybe Amazon, B&H. They're doing some great deals, although the deals at B&H, they do better stuff throughout the month than they are right now for this special Friday. And there's going to be some special Monday deals, and there's deals all weekend, hardware and software. It's just a crazy business. But what I want to show you is on the ASUS Zen, what I judge other laptops by, and that's what I look for price and performance. Whether we're looking at bang for the buck, and I want a little more performance, or I'm willing to go a little bit lower in performance because I get a lower price. So there's a balance with both those. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to show you. I've got a link into Costco, and one link is dead. The other link is active, but if I clicked on it, nothing is there. It was the ASUS Zen UX 501. This particular laptop, as we look at this, the ASUS Zen 501, and let's see if we can zoom in on that just a little bit. I won't click on that link because that link does not work. It does not exist, but it shows you there was a setting for it. And I've got a bleed over, so give me a second. I've got that on-air graphics. Let me take that away because that computer is doing three things. Okay, now we're looking at the ASUS Zen, this particular laptop, ASUS ZenBook UX 501 VW XH7 1T. and there was another model. Now these two models, the only difference in the two, and the price was at $1250. If you'll notice the one I'm showing you right now, this says $1150. Okay, the one that was $1250 had a 512 gig NVMe drive. This drive in this machine was an M.2 512, but it was not an NVMe drive. So I want to make that distinction. Was it worth $100 more? Yes, I think it was. That drive in that machine with a 17-inch display, $1,250. It was beautiful, but that deal's gone. But that's what I judge other laptops by. So what I'm going to do is from this link, I'll take you in and show you some other laptops. So give me just a second while we pull this back out, and I'm going to go to a different link. Back here on the talking points, I have another link, and this is a special link that I got from Costco, and I'm going to be looking at 3 laptops and comparing them, and I want to show you the difference in how tight they are. Different brands, 2 of them are the same brand, one of them is different. The specs look really close, but I want to show you how to look at the specs, look at the price, and decide what's the best bang buck for you. I'll tell you what I think as I walk you through this. So let's go back over here to our links, and I'm going to look for Costco. And the Costco, I'm going to take you to that particular laptop, which is talking point number 1, but I have another link. Okay, I didn't get that link up because I wasn't sure it was going to work. It does still work. And just cutting to the chase, if you do a search on computer CH 1123, go to Costco. Got to be a Costco member. It's a good idea, worth every penny. I'm a fan. 2 years I had friends say you need to go to Costco. I said I'm not interested in Costco. Finally went to Costco. I'm a believer. So for Computer Tech 1123, now what we're going to look at are 3 laptops, and I'm going to show you, in my opinion, what I think as I evaluate those specs for those laptops. Okay, the first laptop is now out of stock. I'm going to zoom in on this just a little bit, and this was an ASUS. Now this was a great laptop, but it was $950. $950. Okay, I'm looking at a $1,250 computer, and if I were looking at 6 months ago, that $1,250 ASUS Zen was the way to go. ASUS is now pushing the Republic of Gamers. That particular laptop, I don't think it's worth that money. But with that said, when I get finished with this, I will show you a new laptop that's an ASUS ROG that's just come out that is available only from their website that I expect to be available for sale elsewhere later. It's $1,500. And I want to show you the difference in it, because when you look at the laptop I'm going to show you, the laptop I'm going to show you is going to end up, you could almost have 2 of those laptops for what that one ASUS Zen would cost. Excuse me, that ASUS ROG. But the ASUS Zen, that deal's gone. That was a 17-inch screen. That's the first thing I look for. I want a 17-inch screen. I want to know how big the hard drive is. Is it a touch screen or not touch screen? Doesn't matter. Is the screen 1080 or 4K? 1080 is all I need. If it's 4K, I'd love it. If it's touchscreen, that'd be great, but I don't want to pay extra for it. Once I get past that, is it an IPS? I really like IPS because I have an IPS screen. I won't go into the details about that. On another monitor, an LG that we talked about a month ago. Love that monitor. First monitor I've ever had that all I did was plug it in and use it. Didn't have to color balance or do anything. Okay, so the first one is $950. We'll go back over here to this. This is an ASUS ROG. The second one is an HP Envy. It's the HP Envy 17. That one is $800. And the third one also is an HP. Let me go back over here. I'm on dual screen, so this doesn't scroll like I want it to. I have to go all the way to the second screen. Okay, that's got all 3 of them on here. So if you'll notice, the first one's out of stock. Imagine that. A lot of people buying it. It's listed as a gamer's laptop. But if you look at the specs, I wouldn't necessarily call that a gamer's laptop. I'll show you why. Say $950, $800, and $700. Okay, just to cut to the chase, the third one on here that is $700, I would kick that one loose. I'd kick that loose strictly based on the processor. You get more bang for the buck out of the other 2. So if I kick that third one loose, and I'm looking at these 2, the 950 or the 800, I'd kick the 950 loose for 2 reasons. One, it's sold out, but I wouldn't wait for it. If I was waiting for that, there's a better one I'd go for, but it's more money. Then you're left with the one in the middle that's $800. And this $800 one, I'm going to, let me zoom out on that just for a second, and I'm going to show you why I think this is a good laptop for the money. Now, I'll hold down the control key. This should bring up a second link that'll take us in, and we'll go to, let me back out of that, go to this other link. Now, this is an HP Envy with a 17-inch. Again, I'm looking for a 17-inch. If you want something smaller, first of all, these are what I'm looking for if I were buying a laptop, and this is what I'd be looking for if I was recommending a laptop. When I recommended the ASUS Zen, we had, I think, a half a dozen people bought those, and it's a good thing they did because that's still been the best laptop. Long battery life, lots of great things about it. But on the second hand, looking at a current deal that's the best bang for the month of this day and time, right here at Christmas time, November 2017, this particular laptop is what I recommended to Manolo. Manolo was going to be gone this weekend, so Manolo bought this laptop. This is the HP 17T laptop. It's got a Intel Core i7 with 4 gig NVIDIA graphics, and it does 1080p. Now what I'm going to do is go down to the specs, and first of all, when you're looking at something like a laptop, and this applies to a desktop, focus on the hardware. Get what you want, irregardless of the software. That can be changed. Hardware is a different matter. There's certain things in laptops we can change, but try to get all-inclusive of what you want to start with. So we'll go back over here and take a look at this. On the surface, this looks like an okay machine. We've got 16 gigs of memory, 1 terabyte hard drive. Now in a laptop, I could live with 8. I'd probably upgrade it to 16. I prefer 16 because I can tell you right now, based on experience, if there's 16 gigs in there, then that can probably be upgraded to 32 gigs. And I know for a fact with the processor that's in here, and I'll show you how to check those specs, the processor will support 32 gigs. 32 gigs on a laptop is a humongous amount of memory. Don't think you'll need it, but if you do, you can upgrade to it. But this has a 1 terabyte hard drive. What I don't know, and I haven't verified yet, is can I upgrade this from a hard drive? This is a SATA hard drive, 7200 RPM. I don't want a 5900 or a 5400 RPM drive. I want 7200. But can I upgrade this from a SATA hard drive to an M.2? So I've got a hard drive and I've got an M.2. If I can't go to an M.2, then I'll jump that before I go to the next round and look at an SSD. If this has got a SATA hard drive, I can put an SSD in it. But I'd rather have an M.2. But I'm not going to let it be a deal breaker for the money because this will work as is out of the box. Next upgrade, maybe 6 months, might consider something like that. So let's look down here at the rest of the specs. Now this particular model that's right now at Costco for $800, you'll have tax and shipping. It ships pretty quick. The one I'm going to show you is that in an unboxing. I'm not going to do it now, but in the next video I'll show the unboxing of that particular one, but I want to walk you through the specs. As we look at this, it's got an i7, and what's most important is this is an i7 8550 OU. Now I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to go search Google, and I'm going to go to Intel's site, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So back over here, I'll right click and I'll do a search. This brings up this link, and you'll see as we go to Google, and I could look at Passmark, you know, that's good, but I want to first go to Intel, and I'll hold down the control key and bring up that link. And this will take us to the specs. Now this particular processor launched Q3 of 17, so it's a new processor. And again, it's the i7 8550U. If you notice, I got 4 cores and 8 threads. I want as many cores and as many threads as I can get. The model below this, you got half. Now, as we look at these specs, let me zoom in on this for just a minute, because do I want to do a survey? Nope, not right now. As I zoom in on this so you can see this a little bit clearer, 4 cores, 8 threads. If you notice the frequency, this is 1.8. The other machine that's above this has a higher initial speed, but it doesn't have as high a turbo frequency. So for bang for the buck for being in the middle, I still think this is the best bang for the buck for processor, for number of cores, number of the threads, speed of the processor at rest, and the turbo. Got a great set of cache on it, 8 meg smart cache. Wattage is pretty good for power. Let me zoom back out. Options, that processor will support 32 gigs of memory. And because it'll support 32 gigs of memory in that laptop, we're 16 gigs, so I'm good to go. And remember, this is DDR4, and it shows the speeds. It'll support DDR4 2400 and DDR3 2133. Now, in this particular laptop, I imagine it's only DDR4. I'd double check with the manufacturer specs. I haven't gotten that far yet. But based on just the preliminary, I'm running a dual channel. It does not support ECC. If you need ECC, that's a big deal. If you'll also notice, the processor can support the Intel graphics 620. There's a 640, which is better graphics. But remember, we're not using Intel graphics. This machine has, let's go back over to the specs, look at the HP Envy. We are running, and I may have to go back up to the top, but right down here in the specs in the bottom, I'll zoom in on that. We're running an NVIDIA GeForce MX 150. There are better graphics that cost a lot more money. For instance, you might want a 1050 Ti, which is a good place to be. This is the MX 150. That was one of the things about the ASUS Zen with a 17-inch display that you can't find now. It had older graphics than this, but everything else in that was stellar. Had a long battery life, 4K somewhat, but it was an IPS. Beautiful, beautiful piece of equipment. But this is bang for the buck. This is what I suggested Manolo, and this is what I'm going to be using for the unboxing in the next video. So just to remind you, if you find this helpful, please subscribe. It encourages us to make more videos, and thumbs up would be appreciated. So as we go through this, the other good stuff it's got wireless AC. It also has gigabit. Now, if I didn't have access to gigabit, I'm going to show you something else just as a side note, as a matter of course. And let's go over here to camera number 2. This particular adapter is from Pluggable. I've used these successfully before. Whenever I've had to have an adapter on a computer, I've used this. It's a USB 2 Ethernet adapter made by Pluggable. Got it on Amazon. There's a driver that has to be downloaded, but once you plug it into a USB 2 port, it'll work on any computer. And now you would say, why didn't I get USB 3? Good question. Well, for the reason of this gives me gigabit speeds on USB 2. It's portable, convenient. I keep a spare of these with me because I never know who's going to be helping me run our Blackmagic A10 video switch. This always works. It'll work on the ASUS Zen. It's worked on Dell. It's worked on, I believe it was a Acer laptop. It's worked on everything we've had. I'm leery of anything USB 3 because those have not been reliable chipsets. Going forward, USB 3.1, I have big high hopes for it. But just looking at this particular adapter, that's why I wanted to share it with you. Again, this is the Pluggable USB 2 Ethernet adapter, and it'll work on anything that's got a USB port. So enough about that. That's just on a side note. So this particular computer, as we're looking at it, it offers us wireless AC, which is a must, but it's also got gigabit Ethernet. But if it didn't, I've got an adapter for it. And if you notice, it's got a 17-inch IPS monitor. I've got 1080 resolution. 4K would be great. If I'm buying a TV, I want 4K, but for a laptop, 1080 is fine, especially for the money, for bang for the buck. And again, I've got my 4 gig NVIDIA GeForce MX 150. Now, this laptop, if all you're going to do is stream video, this will be fine. If you're going to do email, this will be fine. What I'm going to use this laptop for is several things, but focus purposefully and mindfully on being able to control the ATEM switch, number one. Number two, I want something that is easy to work with a network if I need to diagnose, because sometimes I work with our network. I've got a couple of networks. There's one special network just for the wireless. There's a separate network when we do something with the cameras like the XA35. And on occasion when I worked with the network at, well, even I don't really manage anything at the network at Chapelwood, although I interact with it. But when I need to check it or verify it, I can use this laptop real quickly to walk around the room and check my signal. Or if I need to check and verify what's going on when we're over at Fairhaven, when we install the Ubiquity wireless access points, I needed to be able to plug into separate networks. So in the rig I use, I have a primary switch, then a router. Everything plugs in with that router and switch below it, but that primary switch allows me to bypass my router and go straight to their router so I can see the Ubiquity controllers. For those that do that, you understand what I'm talking about. For those that don't worry about it. But I'm just saying, it's nice to be able to have wired internet and wireless internet, depending on what you're doing. For the video switch, it's got to be wired because the video switch is sensitive to network traffic. So I isolate and only have the stuff that relates to that switch on the network, like what you're seeing right now. Back to the specs. Okay. Let's see, we've got speakers in there, which you would expect. It's got the other good stuff like a webcam and a digital microphone. Just a side note, folks, for security, get you some tape, painter's tape, whatever, and that little camera over that thing, put some tape on it. That's the best cover you got for security, for privacy, because if you ever get hacked, you don't want to see that. So, just saying. So back over to this computer, let me zoom out. If you'll notice also drives, I have mentioned this before. If you've ever used an SSD, that's great. With the desktops we've built, we've gone to an M.2 drive. I would love to have a laptop with an M.2. This does not have that, but it's not a deal breaker for what I'm going to do. Because beside from the things I've mentioned I can do with this, I can also edit audio and video because I use Magix Vegas Video and I use DaVinci Resolve. I can edit. I don't know how it's going to be for processing video when I go to render. We're going to find out, and I'll tell you what I think of it and how it compares. But I can definitely edit. So as we go back over to the specs, I've got a 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive. That's a good place to be. On the surface, I know I can upgrade that to an SSD, be happy with that, and I can live with it. But for 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive, good to go. This also has a DVD burner. Not saying you need it, but it's there. It's a nice addition. Because I use Magix Vegas Video, I also have DVD Architect, and occasionally I have been asked, can I master a Redbook audio CD? Yes, I can if I want to extract the audio out of a video. For example, if we went to Pat's Piano that we have a link up on YouTube, and I'll take you through and show you BuilderBuy on YouTube in just a second. But I have a link up there for Pat's Piano. Pat had asked me, he said, can you take those videos, extract that audio, and write that to a CD for me? I said, yes, ma'am, I can. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. One of my round to it's. Only takes time. So, back over to this. 16 gigs of memory, an i7. I like the processor because of the cores I've got. And in fact, just for grins, let me go back over here to this other laptop. I'll hold down the control key. Let me show you the lesser one, because I'm going to specifically show you what's in the CPU. We're going to go take a look at this CPU. This is an i7. It runs at 2.7 gigahertz. The one I'm going to show you runs at 1.8 gigahertz. Okay. This is important, not just what the speed of the processor, but how many cores and how many threads you've got. And I'll show you why. Okay, this is the one we're going to be doing the unboxing of later. This is the lesser one that I discounted that runs faster. I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to search Google, and we're going to go to Intel, and over here to Google we find the Intel Core i7 7500. I'm going to click on this second link. I don't want to go to ARC. I'm going to click on the second link, and I'm not going to Passmark. That's good, but what I want to do is look at the specs. This came out in Q3 of 16. Okay, this is an older processor. It's still a good processor. It's less expensive, but what I'm showing you is a newer processor. So this older processor, stay with me. If you notice, it's got 2 cores, 4 threads. What the other one have? The one we're going to do the unboxing on? Let's go back over that and take a look. The one that we're going to do the unboxing on, that'll support 32 gigs of memory, has 4 cores, 8 threads. 4 cores, 8 threads. So would you rather have 4 cores, 8 threads, or would you rather have 2 cores, 4 threads? Me, I want more. It's a little bit slower, but I got more cores for processing. For doing audio and video and the stuff I'm going to do, more cores is better. That's also a reason to build a Threadripper. More cores are better. So we go back over to that. So looking at this, Q3 is 2016, 2 cores, 4 threads. It's got a 4 meg cache as opposed to an 8 meg cache. Wattage is, pretty good. It'll also support 32 gigs of RAM, and default it's DDR4. There's also a configuration for DDR3. Again, you want to check your specs, but I would expect new processors right now to all be DDR4, but you need to verify that, and we will as we go through the unboxing once we plug it in. So back over to the type, 32 gigs. It's dual channel, which is the same. ECC is not supported. If you need a laptop that supports ECC, then you want a workstation grade laptop. money's not the issue with a workstation grade laptop. If you're looking for that kind of laptop, BOXX, BOXX has some amazing offerings. I think I have a link up on BuilderBuy I can show you too if we get back to it. You're talking a different class of computer or workstation. This is a regular computer that you can carry with you and take anywhere to do whatever you got to do. Me, I need the size of the display, so whether I'm running the switch, running the graphics, or even streaming, I can do that with this HP Envy. So as we look at the processors, we go back, and again, this particular system was $100 less. Is it worth $100 more to get twice the cache, slower speed in the processor, but twice the cores, twice the threads? My answer is yes. Definitely yes. Now, which processor should I buy? Should I buy an Intel or should I buy an AMD? As of now, because you can get your hands on a Ryzen, I would love to get my hands on a Ryzen. But when this was ordered, when this was offered, the Ryzen was not available. Remember that. So you're benefiting from hindsight, which is always 20/20, and second guessing. You're getting it firsthand. So hope this is making sense to everybody, for anybody that's watching. And again, we're doing this live, folks, just to give you an example of that. Give me just a second, and I'm going to put something up here on screen to remind everybody that we are live. There. That just took a second. We are now using New Blue Titler Live presentation version. It's a new upgrade to the program. And if I put the graphics back on, I will not be able to, there we go. I will not be able to go to dual screen. If I go to dual screen, when I zoom into something, then I have to take that back off. So just a side note. But I kind of like it. It's kind of neat. Shows that we are live. Okay, back over to the laptop. And that blanks that out. So I'll take that back off the screen. That is number 2. Yep, pull that off. Okay, so we'll go back. And we'll go back. And I can still zoom in if I need to. So this particular one for $700, this is the one I said no on. It's an AMD Radeon 4 gig 530 graphics, which I'm not real fond of. Let me zoom in on that so you can see it. The graphics were not really to my liking. The speed of the processor was not to my liking, so that's why I said I'm a no-go on that. So back over, we're looking at 3, and I'll go in, and if you think it's beneficial, let's take a look at the third one. And in a way it kind of is, because it sets the tone for this other ASUS ROG that's just become available, that's $1,500, to show you why I think it's worth the money, where I don't think this is worth the money. So let me hold down the control key, we'll press enter, we'll get that up, we'll go over to the next screen, and this particular display, 17-inch, 16 gigs, this has a 1 terabyte and 128 gig SSD. I don't think that's worth 128 gig SSD for the extra money. We'll keep going, but that's just my opinion. And also, this is listed as a gaming laptop. You can change out your hard drive, and we may go through that process as well when we get into this laptop and show you the process. It's not as complicated as some of them, but we'll see. If this one comes out the back, it's easy. If it comes out the front, that's a little bit more complicated, but we'll see. So anyway, this is the third one that's out of stock, the ASUS ROG 4 gig NVIDIA graphics. Now this has a GTX 1050 Ti. As a side note, the GTX 1050 Ti that's listed on here, if you're going to do streaming from, say, some site like Netflix, that's the minimum spec for streaming 4K. Oh, by the way, this laptop is not 4K, so that doesn't apply. Got to have 4K on the laptop, and your minimum video has got to be a GTX 1050 Ti. Now, are they going to adhere to that? I don't know, but that was the specs they put out a few months back. We'll see how that plays out. That's like saying, well, you've also got to use Microsoft's new browser. Ain't going to happen, my opinion. So we look at the processor. It's a 2.8 gig. Let me scroll down here to the specs on the right. Excuse me, on the left. We'll go back to the right one in a minute because I want to get to the USB 3.1C. So if you'll notice, this says this has a 1 terabyte 5400 RPM drive. I'm not a fan of that. Let me zoom in on that. a 1 terabyte 5400 RPM drive. They sacrificed the speed of the drive and put in a 128 gig SSD. 128 gig SSD is not very big, not very expensive, and you'll get bummed out pretty quick, because if that's your primary boot drive, 128 gig, that should be a minimum of a 256 gig drive. And believe me, when you start loading up, if it's your only computer, you're going to wish it was a 512. So I would want to pull that out and put an SSD in there that's got some space. 128 gig is just, that's a tease. Now it's got a DVD burner in it. That's nice. That's great. That's a good thing. But I wouldn't, you know, if it's there, fine. If it's not, fine. It's not a deal breaker, because your burner can always be on a USB. Most people don't use them. If you notice most desktop cases, there are no open bays. For me, that doesn't work, because I need access to be able to remove drives. Moving lots of video from one computer to the other. Some stuff I don't move through the network. I put it on a drive, put it on a machine, pull that drive out and put it on another machine. So I need access to hot swap bays. I need removable, not out the side, especially when I've got stacked computers. But for a laptop, you know, having a DVD burner could be handy. For example, when you get ready to clone, image, or backup, USB stick, or to a CD or a DVD. It's good to have both. If you have to repair the data store, you got to have the ISO image, so if you have the ability to write it from here, that also means that the machine will boot from that drive. Good to know, especially if you're in a problem. Now the operating system said Windows 10. Everything's got Windows 10. Hate it, love it, don't like it, whatever. Kicking and screaming, we're going to have Windows 10. The question is it Windows 10 Home or Windows 10 Pro? Personally, I prefer Pro for lots of reasons, because of the system policy editor and a lot of things that are just easier to do in Pro. But if you know what the setting is, you can do it in Pro. You can export it and then take that setting and import it into the registry of a Windows 10 Home computer. As long as they're both 64-bit, it'll work. But as a side note, we still have the ability to, if you know how, if you have a license that you haven't used, you can upgrade from Windows 10 Home, which all three of these computers have, to Windows 10 Pro. But if you still have access to a license, you want to use the free upgrade, you need to do it before the end of the year. Keep that in mind, according to what they're saying right now. They've been saying a long time that's going away. That's dumb. As long as that exists, they need to allow it if they want people to keep doing this, upgrading old computers. But more and more people are going to be buying new computers, so it may become a moot point. So if they just let it die quietly and not make it an issue, it won't be an issue. My 2 cents. Okay, back over to the system. We've got wireless AC. It's got Ethernet. It's got an RJ45. It's got a 17-inch screen. This is a glossy screen. This doesn't say anything about IPS. An IPS monitor, the advantage of it, whether it's a monitor or a laptop, is when you look at a laptop head on, you can see it straight on. But when you look at it sideways on an IPS monitor, you can still see it. And if you're sharing a laptop with somebody else, you know, that you want them to see what's over your shoulder without putting one of those screens to block outside views, an IPS, especially for photography, is wonderful to use. It makes it easier, makes it better. Also makes it a little bit more expensive, but that's not becoming such an issue. But if you'll notice, I'm showing you this computer is more expensive, but that doesn't make it better. But it's classified as a gaming laptop. That doesn't make it better. Doesn't make it a better laptop. You've got a 17-inch glossy display. You've got better graphics, the 1050 Ti, but it's not IPS. And it's as we look over here at the specs, they've dumbed down the drives to give you a slower hard drive. Spinning hard drives are cheap, and spinning hard drives are not going to go away. But for a new hard drive in this machine, you're talking under $100. If you put an SSD in it, depending on which one you want to get, $300. So you got room to upgrade. But I don't think this is worth the money. And the last thing I'm going to do, we're going to check the processor. So let's take a look at this processor. Let me zoom back out. Now this is an i7 7700 HQ. So we're going to go Google that. We'll go to Intel. I'm not going to Intel Arc. Let's go to the Intel second link. And this will get us mobile processor. Okay, this is a newer processor. This came out in Q1 of 17. This again has 4 cores, 8 threads. Nice. This has a higher base frequency, 2.8 gigahertz, versus the other one, which I think was 1.8. But this only goes to 3.8, which the other one goes to 4 gigahertz. So something to think about. Wattage looks pretty good. This will support 64 gigs of RAM. I don't see putting 64 gigs of RAM in a laptop. I've used a lot of machines, but there's not many things that take advantage of a lot of RAM. If you're doing streaming, processing of audio, whereas you're using your computer to do MIDI and you're running your sounds off of an SSD, then you want those up in memory, then yes, a lot of RAM would be a good idea. But if you're not using like a Focusrite mixer of some type and you're not using a MIDI keyboard, then you're not going to use 64 gigs of RAM. Even for the rendering and stuff. Rendering needs a fast processor, number one. They claim a better video card, number two. RAM, way number three, 32 gigs. So, for the money, I just don't think this is bang for the buck. And again, it's dual channel. You can talk about the memory bandwidth and also about the processor. This processor has Intel HD graphics. But remember, we're using separate graphics that are head and shoulders above the Intel graphics. And eventually those Intel graphics are going to go away because remember, Intel is now going to be working with AMD for a graphics solution that they haven't had. And AMD and Intel haven't worked together since we built the 486s. Significant. So, that's something to get wound up in. So as we look at what it can do, this is capable of doing a higher resolution, but you probably will never go to that since it's set up for 1080. So the processor can support more than what you're going to need. So in terms of bang for the buck, and I look at the price based on the specs, in my opinion, a lot of people have bought that. It was $950. I don't think it's a good deal for the money. As I look at, let me go back over here to this link, of these three computers, I still think the one in the middle is the best bang for the buck, but that's my opinion. You're looking at $950, $800 versus $700. The $800 one, I think, in my opinion, is bang for the buck. Now, I want to show you the high-end one before I end all this, and I may go back to some talking points to share some more stuff with you. To remind you, we normally meet every Wednesday from 1 to 3. We did not meet this Wednesday because of Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And this is a midnight special we're doing tonight. And I wanted to see if what would happen. We'll see how many people see it. I'm either crazy or ought to be, right? It's all about computers. That's what we're here for. So I hope you enjoy this. So the $800 one, we're going to go back to Build or Buy, and I'm going to look for an ASUS. And I think I have the link in here. If I don't, I've got it in email. And yes, there it is. Okay, this is going to be talking point number 10. This is an ASUS Republic of Gamers Strix. This is a gaming laptop. Oh, this is what I like the best. This has a Ryzen in it. Pretty cool too. This is a Ryzen 7 1700. Nice. Let's go to that link. I'll hold down the control key. This is talking point number 10. We're going to bring that up. And this will take us into the store over at ASUS. And if you notice, it's an ASUS Republic of Gamers Strix. It's an AMD gaming laptop. Technology, gaming, whatever you want to call it. Workstations are coming out. This has a workstation class processor. Keep that in mind, because there's not just Windows 32-bit, 64-bit. 32-bit's going away, but we still have to mention it. But there's Windows 10 Home, there's Windows 10 Pro, and there's going to be Windows 10 Workstation. And when Windows 10 Workstation comes out, eventually there's going to be an upgrade where you can take a laptop like this, because it's a Ryzen 7 1700. That is a great desktop processor. And you can install Windows 10 Workstation on there. Eventually. Not in the beginning, but eventually. So that's something to think about. It'll cost, but something to think about. So this is set up to do a whole lot of things. It's got a 16 gigs of memory, DDR4. It's got a 256 gig SSD, which is like, you're getting there. That's a minimum. That's a minimum. And a 1 terabyte hard drive. I don't know the speed of the drive. Maybe we'll look and see if it'll tell us. But based on that, for $1,500, that to me is where laptops need to be. Now, is that better than the ASUS Zen? The ASUS Zen is gone. That's what I judge laptops by. This is an ASUS ROG, the ASUS Republic of Gamers Strix. That's a nice laptop for $1,500. Now, when that first became available, all I could do is say, send me an email when it's available. All I had was a listing on it. A couple of days later, it now says add to cart. Keep watching that listing. That link is up on BuilderBuy. I'll put it in this YouTube video because I would expect over time somebody else would have that available. But again, it's going to have a window. I would give it probably about 6 months, maybe less, because there's some new processors coming up. And I've got a link on BuilderBuy where ASUS has released some BIOS updates for the other chipsets that talk about some new processors. We don't know the speed yet, but it's coming. So, you know, things change. And don't buy something you don't need because it changes so quickly. Only buy what you need right now and use what you're going to get. When you get a laptop, you want to put it into service immediately because things change. It's always changing. As long as we've been doing this, it's just like you jump in, take a dive, and swim with the sharks. That's where we're at. Okay, so the ASUS Republica Gamer Strix, 17-inch, a Ryzen 7 1700. And we could go down and look at the cores, look at the threads. The FreeSync is important for some people with the display for screen tear. There's other way to handle screen tear, as long as they keep improving the drivers. Screen tear is important for videos as well as for games. This would be great for streaming, for playing, for work, for editing video, and I imagine I could use this to render with. It's a desktop processor. Filters out ambient noise. It's got good audio, extensive connectivity, USB 3.1, Type-C, and this USB 3 stuff, PETA, absolute PETA. We need to bypass all that. If you're not using USB 2 and you've gone to USB 3, man, trying to clone image or back up a drive, that's terrible, terrible. Remember we had eSATA for a while. That was pretty neat. That didn't last long. USB 3.1C, I've tried it a couple times on desktops. That's where we need to be, minimum. And we're in first generation. So there's going to be a generation 2 and a generation 3. As we go down the pike, that'll change too. But anyway, this is where we're at right now. It's got an RJ45 LAN port, one HDMI. Now, why is an HDMI port important? All the laptops we've looked at have an HDMI port out. Have you ever connected your computer to your big screen TV? It's easy to do. Used to we had DVI connections. Those were a pain. Now it's just another input. HDMI, you're up on the big screen. It sees it as another monitor, and wow, it's gorgeous. Try it sometime. In fact, that's how we hook up our computers to the video switches, through HDMI. I don't like HDMI, but it's one of those, you got to have it because that's where the connectivity's at. So HDMI out, and this calls this a desktop replacement. For a lot of people, it could be. It could be. To me, it would supplement the desktop. But as we go on down and see the other good stuff, it has Windows 10. Doesn't say which version, if it's 10, if it's Home or Pro. I would take a guess. This is one that I would hope that Costco would have, because when Costco does a deal, you got to check the specs carefully because they beef it up. An example is that ASUS Zen. If you go looking for that ASUS Zen with that model, all you're going to see is a 15-inch screen. I tell you, the ASUS Zen, when it was available from Costco, had a 17-inch screen. It's phenomenal. But that's what I judge other laptops by. That's the spec. So whether you're buying ASUS, HP, Dell, you got your favorite places to go. Pick your favorite vendor. Pick your favorite place to buy from. If you get a chance to go to MicroCenter, that's a good place to shop. It's one of the few places you can still go and look at hardware and touchy-feely, see what you like. But you can also, you know, your places online. These deals we were talking about from the Threadripper, that was online, but it was only in the store. You had to physically walk in to get it. But keep watching. Prices are going to hopefully get better, and there's going to be some more deals. It's not Christmas yet, and we're still waiting for money, so we'll see how this plays out. What I look at as what we're talking about today is a mark in time of technology to see how far that technology progresses and how quickly it progresses, because it will change. So back to this laptop, as we look at the specs, it shows the chipset, shows the graphics. It's AMD graphics, 16 gigs of memory, and I would imagine that can be upgraded to at least 32 gigs, maybe further. I'd have to go double check it. It's got a card reader. Card reader's nice. If you got a card reader that'll do SD cards, for example, the cameras, we use Canon G40 and Canon XA35s. They all use SD cards. I put a 128 meg card in all the cameras, and so when I need to record something into the camera, I do it. But then when I take it out, I've got to go through a memory card reader, which is something else to get out. With a laptop, you plug it straight into the laptop, you pull the stuff down, and you can start editing. Something to think about. Now what's nice about this, and I've just noticed, and I didn't see that before, not only does this have one HDMI port, but I wish you'd look at that, this also has a mini display port, which means you got two displays out, which means you have three displays. You've got the primary display in front of you, you got a second display which can be HDMI, but you got a tertiary display which can be mini display port. So you'll need to get an adapter, and I can show you a link to an adapter, but it'll probably be in another video. I found one on Amazon that does the specs that I use with the AMD WX 7100 card, because it has DisplayPort plugs, but I have to go from DisplayPort to HDMI. Well, that company also makes one that does mini DisplayPort to HDMI. So look at your monitors. That's going to be another issue if you've got a monitor that can do that. Some of the new big monitors, for example, when we get through here, I'll show you a deal for a 32-inch monitor that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Also at Costco, really good deal. It's a Dell 32-inch. Was $200. It's now $150. So I'll show you that in just a second. So we're looking at the card readers. The battery, 76 watt hours, pretty good. It's not like 85 or 86 hours, but 76 is pretty good. Dimensions are not bad. Weight, 7.1 pounds. Any of these things that I'm showing you are all things subject to your interpretation and what your needs are, because you change one thing, changes everything. For example, I'm looking for a 17-inch screen. That's number one for me. You might instead look for a faster processor. So you look at the top 5 things you're looking for. If you change one thing, that turns everything upside down, changes everything. But I wanted to show you 3 laptops that we've looked at, and I showed you the one in the middle that I think is the bang for the buck. And this is the one that's a higher end that I also think is a good deal based on what's in it, because it's got a Ryzen in it. And I think that's the way to go. And I will zoom back out and see if I can see some more information on the specs. But I'm impressed with what I see. Okay, one thing I don't like, that hard drive they put in there, they have neutered. And if you'll notice, don't like that, but they put in a 256 gig SSD, but the 1 terabyte hard drive is 5400 RPM. We used to do that to save battery life. I would pull that out and put an SSD in this particular laptop. $300 for the kind of laptop you've got. But it depends on what you're doing. But if you're doing Photoshop and that kind of stuff, you don't want a 5400 RPM drive in there. Program like Photoshop, anything Adobe, will take all the resources you can throw at it. So that's just my 2 cents worth. But that can be changed. It's not a deal breaker. What we don't know for a fact is which operating system we're getting, if it's Pro or Home. My guess, since they don't specify, it's probably going to be Home. But we'll have to look into that a little bit further. Now, if we went and looked at the specs on the AMD Ryzen 1700, just for grins, comparing it to what we were looking at on the others, let's see here on Ryzen 1700 at AMD site and see if this will show us what we want. Get yours. Yep. Now, when we built the Ryzen machines, we built 2 right now. We built one Ryzen 1700, that's the machine that Lou runs, and then we built the Ryzen above that, which is the one I use for video processing, which I love. And the next thing we're going to be building is a Threadripper, but I'm waiting for some BIOS updates. So back to this, we're going to look at the performance on this processor. I want to see the specs. Let's see, here we are at the top. Let's look at the specs. This will scroll us down. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Now remember, this is a desktop processor that's in a laptop. The laptop I've been showing you compared to this, no comparison. Even though you can have 2 laptops almost for what this one laptop costs. For example, the Threadripper machine that I've built, it takes the place of 3 computers. I can have 1 computer, what I used to have 3 computers doing. It kind of boggles my mind. So when I build a Threadripper, can I double that? Kind of boggles my mind. That is the processor that's in this laptop. That's why I think it makes it bang for the buck. Let's check this out. 8 cores and 16 threads. What do we have in that laptop? Let's go back over if I can find that link real quick. That was into the Intel site, and that was 4 cores, 8 threads. 4 cores, 8 threads versus 8 cores, 16 threads. We've doubled the performance. Wow. So that's, to me, that's significant. Is that worth $1,500? Price on that should come down. I would guess maybe someone might do a deal on those when they're out, and I haven't looked any more than just what I know is available at ASUS. If you could find that for $1250, don't wait. And it's worth the price of having to upgrade the SSD that's in there. But 8 cores, 16 threads. So we'll go back over to Build or Buy. Let's take a look at some other stuff. So we talked a little bit about laptops, desktops. We've talked about some of the deals that are going on. I've shown you 3 different laptops. I've showed you one I think is the bang for the buck, and that's the one we're going to do an unboxing on in a later video. And I've also showed you the one that, as I base the laptop judgment of an ASUS Zen, I've shown you this new ASUS Republic of Gamers, which is an ASUS Republic of Gamers Strix. Remember that, ASUS ROG Strix. And that has a Ryzen 7 in it, $1,500. That is a laptop. So that's on talking point number 10. I've got several things here, about 40 talking points you can take a look at. Some of this entails a case. As we get ready to build this new Threadripper machine, it's a whole new animal because we're going to put a liquid cooler in it. So that's another video that's going to be coming up. Please watch for. Trying to decide a case. We've narrowed down to 2 for the cooler we want to put in. You know, some of the things as we're looking for in cases, some of the manufacturers as well as some of the dealers don't make it easy to find what you're looking for. You get to look through a lot of junk. And I have a couple of cases that I kind of settled on. One is from Lee & Lee, which is my favorite brand. I prefer the old Lee & Lee. I wish they'd go back to those styles. And the other one is a Corsair case. I have experience with both those. The Corsair case that came in came bent, but it happens. And it was not shipping. This happened in manufacture because the box had no dents on it. And after reading some of the reviews, I'm not the only one that had that problem. But anyway, those are some links we got up on Build or Buy about some cases if you want to look at it. We'll get into that more in detail later. But I wanted to get this out today. And here's a workstation. The BOXX, I'm going to hold down the control key and go to that. BOXX desktop class and a mobile workstation. If you need a workstation laptop, that right there is what I would look into. There's a link for it. The BOXX MXL VR. And that's BOXX, BOXX. So you can go to their website, BOXX. You can read about the specs on this, see what they've got in it. But that's an amazing machine. Who makes it? I don't know who makes it for them. But if you look at it, it's got 2 M.2 drives. This thing is made for doing some work, some serious work. It's got an i7, the Z170 chipset, 2 M.2 PCI Express SSDs, up to 2 SATA SSDs, and all these are options that you can make. 4 memory slots, expandable to 64 gigs of memory, a GeForce GTX 1070 or 1080. Okay, right there, for a 1070 or 1080 graphics card, that's going to be an expensive laptop. Workstation number 1 means money. That video card there means money. So you put those two together, that's an expensive. Qualifies as a workstation. It's a 17-inch 1080 LED screen. It's got a removable 8 lithium-ion battery. A lot of these laptops do not have removable batteries. You've got to physically go in and remove the battery. So that may be an issue with some of these laptops in the future. It's something to think about. It's got a built-in camera. They've all got a camera. It's got USB 3.1 and Thunderbolt. Even though we kind of try to use the two interchangeably, they are not. USB 3.1C and Thunderbolt are not exactly the same, although they're working to get there, but it's different. So if it doesn't specify it, don't expect it. This specifies it, it's there. 2 mini display ports, 1 HDMI, so that means you're going to have 4 displays on this workstation machine. That's pretty cool. And for someone that's doing, say, investment analysis, that may be the kind of computer you want, because you can pack up and go in a hurry if you need to. So when you say something's bang for the buck, what may be bang for the buck for one person may not be bang for the buck for somebody else. But in general, for what we're going to show with this HP Envy, I hope you're going to find this bang for the buck like we think it is. We're going to be talking about it next week at Build or Buy. Hopefully Manolo is going to be there. It'll be this next Wednesday. And I hope you'll join us that Wednesday from 1 to 3. So going back over to these specs, as we look at all this good stuff that's in it, it's got wireless, 802.11 AC. It's got gigabit. Told you about the processor. There's a lot there for the money. Now, if we were to, if you'll notice the price, $36.45. Now, for what I need, for what I'm going to do, $36.45 doesn't justify what I need. I would rather have my money in 2 of those ASUS Republic of Gamer Strix machines than one of these. If you go look at that i7 processor and you compare that i7 processor to the Ryzen, but I would imagine it won't be long before BOXX has some kind of a workstation with a Ryzen or maybe a Threadripper in it. Now that'd be a killer laptop with a Threadripper. Wow. But there it is. I want to share it with you. We'll go back over the talking points. If you're interested, DaVinci Resolve, we got this from Dwayne. Talking point number 19 is upgraded. If you're looking for a video editor, there's a lot of them out there. The 2 I use, number 1 is the one from Blackmagic. It's free. It does amazing things. There's actually 2 versions, the free version and the paid version. If you like the free version, you want to go to the paid version to get tech support, so be it. It supports a whole lot more stuff. Check the specs, but for free, you can't beat the price. It's hard to justify paying for video software. With that said, I also use Magic's Vegas Video. I've been using Vegas Video since day one. I'm a fan of it. I liked it when Sonic Foundry had it. Wasn't too fond of it when Sony had it. Sony did a little bit with it and kind of let it flop, but now Magic's had it and they're doing some great things with it. So I love that program, and I have some plugins that only work in Magic's, even though they're supposed to be able to work with both places. So that's the one I use, number 1. Number 2, I use this other program. When they start going through DaVinci Resolve upgrades, I stay away from them because at some point it breaks too easy, but now it's set. So that's a great program for the price. You can't beat it. It's worth looking into. And it's a free download. And I've also got a link up here on Windows Central for Dell XPS 15 to support full-speed Thunderbolt 3. Best display. There are some that are fans of a Dell laptop. There are some that, like me, that are a fan of the ASUS. There's different camps that have different favorites for different reasons. I'm always interested in bang for the buck. So it's like motherboard manufacturers. I'm a fan of Gigabyte. Been using Gigabyte since day one, since they came out. In fact, how long has it been since Gigabyte's been out? I remember when we went from AT style to ATX. And we went to ATX. That's when I built a Gigabyte, and I've been a fan ever since. So that's a long time. MSI used to build workstation class motherboards. I used an MSI board based on the specs as I compared in the Threadripper, in the Ryzen. When we build the Threadripper, I'll probably use an MSI board. Now, when we built Lou's machine, which has the same specs as this laptop, we used a Gigabyte Aorus, which I thought for what she wanted to do, that class of board, which was a little bit below the board that I used, was perfect bang for the buck for her. Great machine with the Gigabyte Aorus. But one thing the Gigabyte Aorus didn't have, I want hot swap. They need to enable that in the BIOS. I don't know if they've done that yet. With the MSI board, it was there and it worked. I need hot swap because I move drives back and forth a lot with a removable rack. So I'm just saying, throwing that out there. So as I go back to the specs and look at this, there's different cases on here. There's also a link in PC World. And you got to take a look at the stuff at Tom's Hardware. Tom's Hardware is where I first found out about the deal at MicroCenter. Tom's Hardware also has a link up about this new ASUS Republic of Gamers Strix laptop. In fact, it's talking point number 12. Take a look at it. And I mentioned earlier about the new processors coming out. Tom's Hardware has a link up on that. Doesn't say what the processors are, but they mention new processors. So something's coming down the pike. Just a matter of when the other shoe drops. They're going to support it. And above all, folks, when you're shopping this year, be sure and stay safe. Keep your defenses up. Personally, I don't like depending on Microsoft to keep my safety. I've got a link up on one of the things that Microsoft has. It's a link from Extreme Tech, talking point number 9. Key Windows 10 anti-malware tech critically broken. Microsoft builds an operating system. That's all I expect out of them. I don't want them doing more. I still use Kaspersky. Not worried about the Russians. I'm not worried about the CIA. Kaspersky works for me. I use the, and if you're interested, the best deal to buy a Kaspersky Internet Security Suite this weekend was or is at Newegg. You can take a look at that. I think it was $10 a copy for 3 machines for a year. Nice deal. But I've also got a link up here on Malware Bytes, 10 tips for safe shopping online. And I've also got a link up here to Zone Alarm. about update your security. We used to use Zone Alarm. I quit using Zone Alarm when Windows went to 64-bit under Vista. They didn't have anything 64-bit. We tried other stuff. That's when I went to Kaspersky, and I've stayed there. It was about a year before Zone Alarm finally came out with a 64-bit version, but it's still a good product. It got a little convoluted in use sometimes, but I've got several things up here, and I'll finish up talking point number 1. I've got a link up to this Costco HP Envy, which is the laptop I've shown you, which is the laptop we're going to use in the unboxing. I don't know if I'll do the unboxing tonight or if we're going to do the unboxing tomorrow, but I'm going to put up a video about the HP Envy. Bang for the buck. It's number 1, I think, of the 3 I showed you based on that code. So let's go back over to that computer, and I'll hold down the control key, click on that link, bring that up, and it wants to show account details. Let's see if I can bring it up again. There it is. Came back up. Okay. Want me to log in. Don't want to do that right now. I did a while ago. I was logged in for the link I showed you where I had saved bookmark stuff that's no longer available. I should have, because of the specification, bookmarked that. I didn't expect that ASUS Zen to go away like it did, but it did. But that's what I based my specs on. This is the HP Envy 17 laptop with an Intel Core i7, 4 gig NVIDIA graphics. It'll do 1080 resolution, and that's an MX 150 graphics. And that processor, of the 3, I think was the best bang for the buck. So hope you enjoyed this. How long have we been on tonight? That's interesting. Maybe long enough or too long. I hope you found this useful. If you did, I'd appreciate it. Remember, we're doing this live, and I'm going to put that back on air. And I'm going to, since I'm a one-man band here tonight, remind you, Builder Buy meets every Wednesday from 1 to 3. And my name is Gil Boyd. I am the co-host of Builder Buy. There we go. And I will say, if you found this helpful, thumbs up would be appreciated. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We talked about laptops, and we talked about desktops. So thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on our next video, which will probably be about this HP Envy. We'll either live stream it, or probably more likely we will record it and put the video up and share that information with you. Thanks for watching this, and remember, Builder Buy every Wednesday from 1 to 3. We've also got Builder Buy behind the scene. You can see us up on YouTube, and have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next broadcast. And forgot where my graphics were. There we are. Y'all have a great evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for watching.